Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Winnetka Village Council regular meeting for August 17th, 2020. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask that everybody in the room either turn off or mute your cell phones and other electronic devices. Item 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked Trustee Lampier to lead us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, Rob, you want to do a quick quorum check?
Certainly. Looking at the 3 meetings in September, the first meeting is the 9th, which is rescheduled due to a holiday. Does that date look okay for everybody? All right. And then September 14th, study session, and the 21st regular meeting. 21st? Okay, thank you. You're good? Okay. John, you're okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Item 4 is public comment. This is the time of the evening when members of the public may address the Village Council on items that are not part of the existing agenda. Would anybody like to address Council tonight on an item that is not in the agenda and does not have to do with 9/11? Seeing none, Kristen, did we receive any written communications?
President, no written public comment in advance of the meeting.
Awesome, thank you. All right, we'll move forward. We're going to move to reports, and our first report is the Village Green September 11 Memorial Flags request. In 2008, a tradition began to honor the victims of September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks by placing American flags on the Village Green. This year marks the 20th anniversary of those attacks, and Trustee Andy Kripe is here to review the request for us.
And Charlie, you want to come up to that podium over there? Okay. You can all go over there, that's fine. So Charlie, you want to just describe a little bit what we do?
Yeah, so we're going to be planting 2,977 flags in the Village Green on September 10th and taking them out at sundown, on the 11th. That's pretty much it.
And this year, with it being the 20th anniversary, we don't want to do anything over the top, but we have arranged a piper and drum band, a small family band, to be at the Village Green at 5 o'clock, and we thought it might be a nice time for the police and fire department to gather and for residents as well. Nice, safe distance, but so there'll be a brief piper and drum band.
Awesome. That sounds
Thank
great.
you. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you. Yeah. Any questions or comments from the council?
I would just like to say thank you all so much. This tradition that you have picked up from, the other young people who started this, it's remarkable. And it certainly is an important moment for our country and for our community. So thanks for all you guys do to help us commemorate it. It's a lot of work.
Thank you all for letting us do it year after year.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Kim, anything?
Who's in charge of counting the flags?
We have a method.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Andy, thank you to your whole family for taking on this this project. I know it was pretty special when it first started, and there was always a big wonder whether it would continue on after, was it Jessica's children?
Yeah, Jessica took it over from the girl who started it
Right.
in 2008, Genevieve, Nelson.
And it's just awesome to see that people in the community are picking up the slack and keeping these really important village traditions alive. It's really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
So, any comment from the audience on this event? Seeing none. All right. Well, may I have a motion to approve the placing of flags on Village Green in the memory of September 11th terrorist attack victims?
So moved.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Lampier?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Mancini?
Yes.
And Trustee Kripe?
Yes,
I'll vote yes, too.
thank you all.
Even though you don't get a vote.
I don't get a vote. All right, moving forward, we'll move forward to trustee reports, and I'd like to start with Penny.
So this is a really hard meeting for me, as you all know. I have accepted the opportunity to go out east this year and be the babysitter for my grandson. So my daughter-in-law is finishing her year in residency, and my son is in graduate school. So it's, when they ask, of course you say yes, right? So it's a privilege, and it's just for a year. But the unfortunate part is that I can't finish out my term as village trustee. So this is my last meeting, so it's definitely, this is very hard because it's been such a privilege to serve the community and to serve with you all. I'm disappointed to be leaving, but I'm happy to be turning over my seat. I think it's time for a new perspective, and as our village is facing some new opportunities that we're going to be talking about, particularly tonight, I think it's great, and I feel really good about that. But I also want to take a few minutes just to talk a little bit about kind of what I haven't been able to complete, which is really disappointing, and I know you all are going to carry on. Obviously, the stormwater project that I've had the privilege to watch be the village staff and with the leadership of Chris and with Andy to carry out. I mean, it's just tremendous what this project has accomplished for our community, and it's been done so well that I don't think the community understands how complicated and how forward-looking this particular proposal is. It I think is going to be such a win-win-win-win for our community in terms of all of the different taxing bodies that are involved, and that it really is taking what has been a tremendous problem and really turning it into a forward-looking solution from an environmental standpoint and from a quality of life standpoint. I mean, really improving our forest preserve, which is used so much, and alleviating all the flooding problems on the west side. So, and also the golf course and the playing fields for the high school. So it's a tremendous solution, and thank you all so much for the leadership and what you've done to make this happen. Again, I don't think the community has any understanding of all the work that's gone into it. I'm also sorry that I won't be around to see to finish out working on the former Fell site. That I think obviously was an incredibly complicated also issue that came. It's pointed out a lot of difficulties that we had in some of our ordinances and processes, and I think that, again, staff and the council have done a great job of identifying those and making some really important improvements, both in terms of how staff handles these requests and the kind of review that they're received through our new plan development review process. So I think that's really exciting. The comprehensive plan, which is near and dear to my heart from having been so involved with it 20 years ago, and feel so lucky at least that we're able to talk about it tonight before going off. And I'm very sorry that I will not be around to shepherd through the complete replacement of our water and sewer system.
I'm not sure any of us will.
God help us. But I also wanted to mention two additional goals that we really haven't had a chance to talk about, and I certainly was hoping that we would at some later date, but as I won't, I'm just going to go ahead and lay it out to you, and hopefully you'll be able to move it forward. And one is seemingly insignificant, but I think it had a really important effect on the Fell site, and that is how we measure building height, and that currently we look at it from the frontage of the site, and with the Fell site that turned out to be it really hampered us because there was a full floor was gained at the rear of the property, which was the east side, and it was very difficult for us to do anything about it. We were hampered by our own regulations. So that's one that I hope you will address soon. And the other one is part of the comprehensive plan, but I think it's something we need to attack right away, is the completion of our sidewalk system, and that certainly was a goal of the prior plan. And I know, Steve, we had mentioned in last year's budget process in terms of, doing a survey of the streets that are incomplete. But I think it's really important to our community to have a completed sidewalk system, pedestrian system on all of our public streets. Safety is something that we should be able to promise to all of our residents. And having been through an entire life cycle of having young children, all the way through having taken care of my mother and trying to navigate on streets that don't have sidewalks, and watching what happens on streets without sidewalks. I live on one. I think we're lucky that we haven't had more accidents. And it is a complicated issue because, you're involving people's properties, but I've thought about it a lot, and I'd be happy to sketch out some ideas that I have to make that easier. So anyway, it has been an honor and a privilege, and when people say, I hear at other places, oh, government doesn't work, and yada, 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 I can say loudly and proudly that has not been my experience at all, from having served twice in the village council and our school board. Winnetka is so fortunate to have such incredibly competent and dedicated staff and trustees, elected members. So I can't thank you all enough, and I feel like leaving the community in really good hands. So thank you all so much for the opportunity, and here we go. Thank you. I'll probably start crying at some point. So.
Comments? Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I've had the privilege to sort of co-anchor the left side of this building here for the last 4 years of you, Penny, but you talk about the honor and privilege for you to be able to serve Winnetka. I think that people don't really understand how lucky we are to have people like you who have served this village. Becky would know this, for decades. First of all, you come at it with a very thoughtful and good perspective. But the knowledge that you have accrued over time and that you bring these conversations is really indispensable. And I think we've all benefited from this because you are thoughtful, you're smart, and you've seen it all in this town. When you go back and you talk about when you were on the comp plan committee or you were at the school board and you dealt with this, and it's just invaluable. But you're just a terrific person, and when I heard you were leaving us, it was like the breath was taken out of me. I was so disappointed, but believe me, I would jump at the chance to do what you're doing in a heartbeat. So I give you a lot of credit for that, but you will be missed. I will miss you. But I don't think you're going to be gone forever. I think we'll be able to tap into you down the road. So good luck with everything.
And you still have my phone number, so feel free to
I've
call
got
with
a
it.
number for you, but you don't answer yourself.
That's true.
She answers for me, Bob.
I'll call you back.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Others?
I'm going to miss you, Penny. You've always made me laugh at even like the most difficult issues, and you've been a great caretaker of the village. So it's appropriate that you're going to another caretaker role, and I'm sure you'll be back. And it's been a lot of fun working with you, not just on the council, but before we were on the caucus council together way back when. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So
I just will echo, it's been a pleasure watching you from afar and getting to know you through Vicky, but then getting to work with you has been great. You are someone who not only thoroughly studies the issues, but you are welcoming to new ideas and fresh ideas, and not being mired in any type of previous thought that you get sucked into. So since you're going to miss it so much, I will volunteer to call you after each meeting and give you the play-by-play, but I
it
think
could be one of our 4 views on YouTube.
we'll miss you and I'll look forward to seeing you, but you're going to have a lot of fun.
Hey, Penny, I obviously reiterate everything everyone else has said. Only a few years together, but all the historical data you brought has been great. So, and wish you luck, and thank you for all you've done.
Oh, I just want to, I've only been on the council with you for a short amount of time, but I have to say you were a good influence for me on wanting to join the council, and you spent no less than an hour and a half, maybe, hour and 15 minutes telling me about all the things from your first time on the council to this time on your council, how rewarding it was, how passionate you were about it, and it was definitely one of the catalysts to get me to join. So thank you for that.
Well, Kim, I would like to say that after we had that conversation, I I give you tons of credit for being willing to join, because I thought, oh my God, I've scared this poor woman. I'm like never going to step foot. So I'm thrilled you're on the council. It's great.
Yeah, well, Penny, thank you so much. I mean, I like to think our relationship is special, being out in the campaign trail together, and interestingly enough, I think about you every day, because about a year, maybe 2 years ago, I was up in the attic of the garage and I put my foot through the ceiling, and the only thing that I had that fits perfectly over that hole is one of our campaign signs. So I've got you and Louise just kind of hovering over my prized toy in the garage, and I think of you often there. But no, and that's the truth. But seriously, I mean, that was an amazing time for me. I used to love the way that we would go on these coffees, and I don't think anybody expected. I think everybody expected us to walk in the room, all three united in everything we said. And I remember some of those coffees, we would end up literally debating between ourselves on issues, which was absolutely amazing. But we all came across with the passion and the care for the community, and thank goodness we ended up here together, because you know, I know Scott and Andy really started to turn the tide relative to how the village, how the community views the council, and I think we ended up helping move that ball along as well. And it's been so special working with you. And, you know, our paths have crossed 100 times over the years. And I certainly will miss you. You know, I still won't always agree with you. But that's half the fun of doing this, right? It's when you don't agree that things get challenging. And, you know, I've always respected where you come from. And you've managed to change me in a lot of ways, both in my thought process and more so in how I view the village. And lastly, thank you so much for starting another tradition here in town, which is the access of the community to the council members by sitting out at those tables, whether it's at Pete's or over there. And more people have come up to me and said what a great idea it is to have somebody from Village Council at the Coffee with Council table, and just to stop by and chat. You know, there's frequent flyers that we always run into, but you'll always hear something special there. And I think you stayed with it when it didn't look like it was going to take off, and it's really turned into another one of those traditions that I think hopefully will continue on into the future, because it's important that we're accessible and people realize we're neighbors just like they are. So, but best of luck. We will be in touch on a regular basis, and one of these days I'll talk you into selling me your place in Michigan, and I'll be able to hide out there and never. Not worry about Winnetka anymore.
Oh my God! I tell you what. Well, we'll never stop worrying.
Special place. So miss you. We'll miss you horribly, Penny. And you know we're here when you need us. So don't lose our numbers.
Thank you. Definitely.
Rob?
Yeah. Penny, on behalf of staff, we want to thank you for your service. It's been a pleasure working with you. Your contributions have been meaningful year in and year out. And yeah, I think you're one of the first people that I had a chance to talk to when I arrived in town, and enjoyed every minute of it. So thank you for your support, and we wish you all the best.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you all so much. I mean, just incredibly kind words. And it just has been, as I said, it's just been such a journey, and I've learned so much. So I wish you all the best. And about that communication, as Becky Hurley can tell you, that, you know, talking with residents anywhere you can, you know, over how many cups of coffee do we need to drink. But it's a great opportunity. I hope you all, you know, really take on those. I certainly picked up the, it wasn't my idea originally, but we've had the opportunity to expand it. So it's great fun, and it's really important. And so, yeah, we've got a great community. Aren't we lucky? So
We certainly are.
Yep.
Anybody in the audience like to say a few words for? You don't have to, but Becky, you want to say something? Come on up.
Becky and I have definitely been through the wars together.
I could tell you stories. I'm thrilled to be in the audience on the grounds of communications on the comp plan, and I have to say, I learned it from this woman. When I was brand new in Winnetka, I was asked to help chair a referendum for the school board. And I was supposed to do it with Henny, and she was already, this is 25 years ago, a legend, and I was terrified. And so we've been through a lot, and, you know, smart and passionate, and we're going to miss her very much. So thank you for letting me add to the cheers.
Thanks, Becky. Okay, we can go home now.
Right, exactly, we're done. Thank you.
All right, we'll move along. Any other trustees have a report?
I just want to note, I was in the EFC meeting last week, and the climate action plan for the Chicago region was released, and they are working to incorporate some of the tactical items that could make sense for our village into their sustainability plan, which was really interesting.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. Anybody else there?
Are you guys going to put those on the website? That would be really interesting.
Yeah, I
That would be
think the
great.
sustainability plan should be on there, but they're going to see how they should be incorporating this new
Yeah.
region for Chicago.
That's what I mean, yeah, like the
Yeah.
specifics and how it'll apply for the village.
Yeah, I'll
That'd be
mention it
great.
to them to put it on their
Good.
website. That's a good
Super.
idea.
Thank you.
Cool. Village attorney?
No report.
Village manager?
No report this evening.
And village president, I'm going to be the buzzkill. I do have a report. A couple things, just updates. Rob and I met with State Senator Laura Fine and State Representative Robin Gable about a week ago. Talked about more about stormwater and other possible aspects of that they could potentially help us with, both financial and political. It was a good meeting. They really, I believe, are engaged and are looking to help the community in any way they can. And you know, again, it's important for us to engage these people on a regular basis, because there are times when we need them, and you never know when $20 million is going to fall out of the sky for us. So that was one meeting. I attended a walk around with David Schoen over at 93 Green Bay Road, where we met the finalists, and I shared with them the comments that we all had from the previous review. And, you know, with respect to the public spaces and just answering some technical questions is all. And all I can say is that it's going to be a really interesting horse race when they come back, because all those parties are engaged and they love the site and they want to become part of our community. So that was a really great meeting too. And lastly, Jim and Rob and myself met with folks from IDOT regarding jurisdictional transfers. We talked about the universe, obviously with some priority on Willow Road, because the stormwater project will be coming up, and it's important for us to have control over certain aspects of that. We also talked about Green Bay Road. I will say that the dialogue was a little sour, and I think we're going to have to, while there are ways that we can navigate this with IDOT, they don't seem like willing participants at this point, would you say, Rob?
No.
But
For any specific reason, or just that they just don't want to deal with it?
It's more, I think it's more of a funding issue. But their process seems to be different than what we had seen in the past.
well, and you know, obviously we're always hung with the reputation for being a wealthy, self-supporting community, and so they're a little bit less inclined, at least initially, to just start writing big checks to the village of Winnetka. But I can promise everybody in this room and everybody out in the community that I'm not going to let one little, I don't think we can do that, stop me at this point. We did talk about ways where we could get Hubbard Woods moving that wouldn't require a lot of their assistance, but again, that's the sort of stuff we as a group have to talk about and decide that's the direction we want to go in. But at least we had the conversation, which has only taken us a year to get them to the table. So now that we are engaged, we're going to hopefully push it hard and see what can come of it. So that's my report. Oh, there was one other thing. Never mind. Okay, so we'll move on. Approval of the agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove an item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item 7 is the consent agenda. I'll ask the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of the warrant list dated July 30th through August 12th, 2021, in the amount of $584,415.19. Resolution number R69, 2021, agreement with Thielen Sand and Gravel for landscape waste removal. Resolution number R70, 2021, uniform rental and laundry services for adoption and outdoor seating area permits for Little Honeycomb and Hometown Coffee and Juice.
Thanks, Rob. By the way, that's the other thing. Sorry, I got to back up for a second. Little Honeycomb is having their ribbon cutting on Thursday, Liz? On Thursday at 4 o'clock. So if you guys are in the neighborhood, stop on by and welcome an important new restaurant. Now we'll see how the community really engages in those new spaces we created. Anyway, I knew I forgot something. All right, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Dearborn? Yes. Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Lampier?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Mancini?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving along. Item 8, ordinances and resolution. Resolution number R71, 2021, Comprehensive Plan Contract Addendum. This is up for adoption. This resolution would approve an addendum to the agreement with the Lakota Group for the preparation of a comprehensive plan. Work on the plan began in late 2019 and was placed on hold in mid-March 2020 due to the uncertainty of the pandemic, which also halted any in-person meetings. With the desire to meet in person, work regarding the plan is set to resume. At least we thought so when we put this on the agenda a few weeks ago. So anyway, our Community Development Director, David Schoen, is here to review.
Thank you, President Rintz. President Rintz indicated we had started work in 2019 with the assistance of the Lakota Group, and Scott Ferris and Becky Hurley, our consultant team, are here this evening. And we started a work on the comp plan as was identified in our agreement with them. There were 3 major phases, and we were in the analyze phase of the development of the plan. We had completed a number of items that are listed here and outlined in the staff report prior to, in March of 2020, the shutdown related to the pandemic. We had, in the analyze phase, a number of steps yet to complete, which are listed here. And we were just getting ready to hold the community open house when the shutdown occurred. Given that a big component of that is the in-person public engagement, that's when we stopped work on the plan until we could do that again. To restart work on the plan, in talking with Scott and Becky and staff, we really felt there were 2 tasks in that analyze phase that we needed to spend some time revisiting. It's been over a year and a half since we engaged with members of the community and got their thoughts, and we thought it would be important to step back, re-engage with them to see, given the past 16 months, have they viewed the community different? Have they viewed how they do things differently? And are there ideas we should take into consideration as we continue working on the comprehensive plan? In addition, there had been a fair amount of data that had been gathered and analyzed by the consultant team, but we really feel it's important for us to take some time and to look at that data, current data, and review it again to see if there should be a change in how we approach, how we look at the community and its future. Given that we need to do some restart, re-engagement, looking at the data, that will take some additional work from the consultant team that wasn't obviously originally envisioned. They have put together a plan of work in consultation with staff to do that revisit effort, and that amount is listed here, and which is included in the agreement along with the scope of work. So with your approval tonight, we will then move forward with finishing the analyze phase, which should take us through the end of this year to complete. And then next year, we would work on the next two phases of the plan, the visioning and then the establishment of the plan. So with that, I will turn it over to Scott and Becky to say a few words about the additional work and then answer any questions you may have.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
Good evening, everybody. Scott Ferris and
Becky Hurley.
Becky Hurley here with us. Thank you for having us back in. I think, Chris, we talked a while ago, and I was thinking about when I saw the word restart up there as maybe that's the wrong word. I don't really see it as a restart. I see it as an opportunity. We've talked a lot about it. We've talked with you about it. This is an unbelievable opportunity for us to go back to the tenets of this plan. If we can go back a year and a half ago, what we were trying to uncover more than anything else was what makes community in Winnetka. What is community? And how to build that at so many different levels. And I think what we all found out by virtue of an unforeseen event in our lives was we came out a stronger community in many, many aspects. Housing, retail, outdoor environments, all the things that we found that were so important to this community. And it's an opportunity for us to revisit those and find out how important they are and build them into a plan for the future so we can reinvest as a community in those things that help us be better and stronger. So not a restart. This is really an opportunity plan that fell in our lap. And in order to do that, my co-partner here, who follows in the lead of the master of community engagement, we want to re-talk to the people we talked to a year and a half ago and find out what changed in their lives. We want to find out what happened in the marketplace, how we're living our lives, how we're working, how we're commuting. How many of you are going back to the office on a regular basis? Maybe office is a word that will come back to Winnetka one day when we thought it wasn't ever going to be here. A year and a half ago, houses weren't moving. You can't find a house for sale in Winnetka right now. We need to address how we're meeting housing needs in the community. That's a big challenge for us that we need to address. So this is an opportunity to re-engage with folks on a personal level, one-on-one focus group. We want to re-engage at dinner again, but maybe we're going to call it a barbecue. We're going to do something.
Depends on the menu.
Depends on the menu. As we stand here with masks on, it begs the question if we're going to be able to roll out as fast as we thought we'd be able to do here in early September was our goal. But I think we can. I think the world still wants to get back together with a mask on if we have to. I think we got to carry on our business. And I think the very first step in our tasks, besides refreshing the brand and putting it back out for the community, that we're here, we're ready to re-engage, Winnetka Future's back on. Our first task, if you look at it, is to re-engage with all of you and the Plan Commission and go back to the tenets of this plan. What are we trying to achieve? What do we need to hit? What was missing from the first round that wasn't even something we thought about? It may be resiliency as a community that we had never even thought about as a chapter in our comprehensive plan, but now it is.
Community preparedness.
Community preparedness. So again, opportunity, reinvent the process, the front end of the process. Everything stays the same moving forward. We just got to a point where we had collected a lot of information and we were going to engage the community on a whole scale level, and we got shut down, and then everything changed. So we're happy to be back here. We're looking forward to re-engaging. In fact, during this whole pandemic, we've had a lot of time to talk to a lot of people. So I think there's a lot of stories we can all share in this process moving forward.
If I can just chime in, I think Scott's right. This has helped us think more deeply about the basic things that came out in our initial community engagement, and that was, honest to goodness, the most common thing that people talked to us about was community, which was such a, non-concrete comment that it sort of surprised us, but I think it's essential to what we've learned through the pandemic. So as I think about this, as we dive back into this process, we need to do a couple things in terms of community engagement. We have to remind people of this project, right? They got to remember the brand, they got to remember the process, they got to be familiar. So we have to sort of plow the ground. And then we have to find out what they think changed and what didn't. So then when we reach consensus as a community on how to move forward, we don't have the nagging question in the back of people's mind, oh, well, it's different now because of COVID, or it's not, or whatever. So let's do that hard work and be open and transparent and really listening to the community, because that's when you not only get the best ideas, but you get the best buy-in on the community's ideas. I don't have to tell you that. You know that already. But that's sort of the heart of what we're doing, I think.
All right. Questions for
I got a couple.
Becky and Scott? Go ahead, Rob.
Thanks very much for coming back to us, and I do think there's a somewhat of a plan to re-engage. I guess my concern is before you spend a sizable chunk of money going back to the same people to find out what they think. I know when we're looking at companies right now, I work with TPG out in San Francisco, and we have over 150 companies. And we're being very careful not to make decisions based on the current state, because the current state hopefully will not be the current state. And once people can travel, things snap back pretty quickly to the way they used to be. So I'm concerned that we're going to make economic decisions based on a moment in time that may not really represent what happens in 3 years from now when we're actually implementing this. So I think we have to be very careful before you spend a chunk of money, who we're talking to, and making sure we're not clouded by the moment in time we're in, because it always happens. Things will snap back. People will start traveling again. They'll start doing the things they did before. And I don't want to get caught flat-footed in that. So we have to be very careful how we account for that.
Other comments or questions?
Yeah, Rob, I think that's a really interesting point. And actually, that's kind of why I think this moment in time for re-engaging in the community is a really interesting one, because although I agree people will go back to old patterns, that this last 18 months has given people, actually it hasn't given them the opportunity, they've had no choice but to focus on what does it mean to be at home, what does it mean to stay in your community, and people have been thinking deeply about that because that's been their experience. So being able to talk to people at this point in time, we will be able to capture, what did community mean to you, and they've been experiencing it, so that hopefully we can build upon the positives and incorporate those into our plans, so that what people have really enjoyed about our village is something that will become a more important characteristic, and we'll spend more time focusing on that, both in a policy and an economic way. So, I think we have the opportunity, because we've had the data set from previously, and we have that information, but then we also have, people at a moment in time when they've really been thinking about it. I was wondering if you guys were thinking at all about doing a village-wide questionnaire, maybe as a way to kind of re-kick off the process, since it's not so expensive anymore to do surveys, but to ask everybody, what did you learn? What are the values that are important to you? And give everybody a chance to participate, as well as those who you spoke with before. I think it's going to be really interesting to see the real estate data in terms of how many people have moved in over the last 18 months. I think it'll be helpful not only for us, but I think also for the school district, to get a sense of who's moving in and why, and that will be great information for the village to have and use. So I think that this is an investment going forward. The money and the time spent on digging into this right now, I think, will set us up to be kind of a cutting edge, community, if we do it right in terms of moving forward. So I think.
What do you guys think of a survey?
I think it'd be a great idea. I think it's, as Penny said, it's not that hard to do. And I think what we need to do is carefully craft the questions.
Definitely.
So it drives a result, or it drives some sort of information we want to achieve. Otherwise, it's an open-ended, hey, I don't like the way the plants are growing in the parkway, or what, I mean, you know, I think we got to be really, really effective.
Been there, done that.
Yeah,
We got to be really effective of what we're asking. But, you know, when we started this, our engagement profile was a series of cohorts of the persona of Winnetka.
Right.
And it ranged from young to old.
Right.
Lived here forever or just moved in.
Right.
I think we're going to see a lot of young new families in this new cohort.
Right.
And one of our thoughts was to reach out. The Park District has a list of all the new young families, and they send out a welcome package. We want to get the list
Great.
and get in and get out to all those people, because there's a boatload of people who just came in.
Right, exactly.
We want to know what their perception, why did you want to come here so bad? What, you know, what was the driving factor? But I think we can develop a question, and that's something we can work with staff and Dave and everything to put together.
Yeah.
And get out there right away. That's part of our kind of like breaking the ice and getting it back out there. We need to do a little front end, remember the process. We're looking forward to seeing you. Here's a question for you we want to prime you with, so to speak.
Yeah, because last time around, I mean, it really, back in the day when we had mail surveys, right? But it was kind of a broad, it was really more values oriented rather than specifically, and you know, that really set us up in terms of moving forward, in terms of what were the underlying values that we were going after. And anyway, I'm really excited for you guys, and I'm sorry I won't be here to be a part of it. But
We'll send a survey to you.
Any other questions for Becky and Scott? Bob?
Becky and Scott, quick question. We all think that, you know, life is going to be different than it was a year and a half ago and so on, and we're not going to be set back again. But let's hypothetically say that the in-person focus groups and so on are going to be challenged and that type of thing. Is there a way to continue on with the plan here so that we don't get caught up in the same stop and start cycle that we're in? Is there any, I mean, some of the topics that are on here, you know, zoning and so on, I mean, I don't know, I mean, there probably been 12 times, Chris, we've said in meetings, that's got to get to the comp plan. You know, there was a lot of, I mean, in other words, can we keep moving the ball forward here, even if COVID interrupts this introductory?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can tell you anecdotally from other comp plans that we're working on, everybody's moving forward now, and everybody's moving forward really fast. And if you go out there, one of my competitors is right here. There's a whole load of comp plans that are coming online right now because everybody wants in. There's a big conversation to be had in what just happened. And so everybody's retooling, not just here, but across the country. And if you remember, we were also doing a lot of benchmarking against other comparable communities around the country, which part of our gig now is to go back to those plan directors in those towns and go, what happened? Tell us so that we have some benchmarks to compare ourselves against at a certain, you know, demographic profile. So yes, there are certain things in the comprehensive plan, regardless of COVID, that we can continue marching on. They're not going to change. But there's new things in the world that are related to sustainability or to housing or to whatever that we need to get the current information on. You know, biking, like, for instance, biking and walking. It's the #1 driver in every community. Every community is investing in that because what we just went through, people were outside and all they cared about was biking and walking. So we want to find out the stats on, you know, what is the cost to install a sidewalk system in a community and take care of it for a period of time so we know, projected out over 20 years, here's how we should reinvest in sidewalk systems.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that, you know, we need this initiative completed in a high-quality way. I mean, there are too many issues that come up that have this long-term perspective, and we're just like, well, what's the right way to navigate this? And so I really, I don't know what the end date is expected to be on this.
Not soon enough.
Right. Yeah, that's
yesterday.
Well, I think, and you know, we had this conversation with Chris, and that's what prompted us to have a working session with you early on to find out what triggers are out there right now that maybe we need to get ahead of a little bit. Yeah, I was listening to the conversation about IDOT and jurisdictional transfer and Green Bay Road. That's a big component of our comprehensive plan. We got to get on that train if you're having conversations, because the last thing we want to do is walk into weird situation and can't start moving some of our agendas forward, which may be focused on land use character along the corridor and making those changes and curb cuts and all the other things that'll come out of that. So yes, we can move it along. I think our end date is end of 2022. Good. Does that sound right, David? Yeah, end of 2022.
Maybe the middle of 2022.
All of 2022.
How about August?
We'll go we'll go as fast as we can, but we will not sacrifice quality and a
We
good
don't want,
project.
we definitely don't want that sacrifice made. Other questions?
Yeah, I got, not so much to the plan, but the total expenses to date, you have like 85,000. So we're looking at 50% more requests to get back to a restart. And is there anything in the contract that has any stipulation about when the project's put on hold and the fees associated? I reviewed it, I didn't see anything like that. So I was surprised to be asked now for $45,000, quite honestly. It seems like a lot of money, 50% more than they spent. What they spent may have already been over their internal budget, I'm not sure. But it seems like a lot of money being spent, and we just can't give money away all the time. And if the contract didn't have any terms for putting the project on hold, that all my contracts have that, and there's limits on, like, it might be a 3% or a 5% re-equation to get re-familiar with the project. So I don't know how you respond to that.
I haven't had a project put on hold for a year and a half based on COVID or any other major pandemic, and I don't have in my contract or with you that there was an escalation clause or anything. What I did on behalf of staff's request was itemize all the tasks, all the people, all the hours, myself, my other team members. So it's not just me, it's
Right.
our economics folks and our transportation folks, and presented that in terms of the hours and then compared it against the original hours of time that were spent on those same tasks
Right.
a year and a half ago. So it wasn't like we made up more hours to those specific tasks.
I mean, I know how hours go, like on our projects, fixed fees. I might be 75% of fees spent per hourly rate, 40% more to go. I mean, it doesn't always work out that we're doing it hourly.
It's a fixed
It's a
fee,
tough one.
but you require, or most communities require us to identify the tasks and the man-hours associated with those tasks.
Right.
If you look at it closely and you see all the hours and staff members, and you go down to mine,
Right.
my time in it, it's comped.
Sure.
So.
And I go back to what
I can say, I understand what you're saying. On the other hand, I can say that I'm going to deliver you a lot more services for fair value.
Kind of go back to what Rob mentioned. Let's forget about COVID. We're going to snap back. So it's almost like we might be going back 10% of the time to move forward. I don't think our downtown areas are going to change because of COVID. The whole because of COVID is just a good excuse a lot of people are using, which, that's just my own opinion. So I really don't know you have to do a total reset. The whole, like, the downtown to Green Bay Road, the overlay districts, the zoning, house size, residential zoning sizes, none of that's going to change because of COVID, in my opinion. So I'm not so sure we need a total reset of $45,000.
Yeah, I think a streamlined reset.
Yeah, more streamlined.
Yeah.
Maybe go back a half a step or something.
Well, I don't think all of those parts are being, it's more the engagement process that's being revisited, right?
Well, 4 things. Hold a community open house, finalize State of the Village, present State of the Village to the Plan Commission.
So here, look on, this is what's been completed.
Hours, yeah, I agree. I'm just
Okay.
going to the 4 things that was listed in the agenda that we have.
Okay. Well, maybe we can talk about that, sorry.
And present the State of the Village to the Village Council. A lot of that stuff was already supposed to be included. So it's really updating that stuff to what do you really think is going to change because of COVID?
As Trustee Lanfear was saying, a big part of it is re-engaging conversation and touching base with individuals again in terms of where we're at today, 18 months later. So it's that public engagement part, we believe, is a critical part to start the project again, to start back in, and to touch base with all of those individuals. And that's what we need to redo. The other aspect is the data analysis in terms of just looking at it and verifying where we were at and where we are today and confirming that. So that's what we've looked at in terms of the additional hours we need to look at those items to move forward.
I guess I'd look at that and say, in any other job I would ever do, I'd do a representative sample. I wouldn't go back and redo everything, because you'll have an idea of what might be changing very quickly, and you can probably save a fair amount of money on this as well.
Right.
You just do a representative sample.
Because again, if this goes another year and a half into 23 or 24, they're gonna come back and want more money again because of some unknown reason. You know? Granted, we entered into a contract without a pause stipulation or something, but
Other questions for Scott and Becky? No?
Where are they? Sorry, I had my glasses fogged up in my mask.
I know, it's unbelievable.
I wasn't upset at John or anything, it's a fog from my mask. No, I think we've changed the scope on you guys. I think we're asking you to do more work, and I think we should pay for what we're asking for. I think we could have continued if we had wanted to press it through the pandemic. I don't think that would have been a good idea. We spend a lot of time in the Village Green. There's a totally different group of people down there. I know that's not going to change how downtown looks. I do strongly believe it will change some of the priorities. I sat here multiple times trying to talk about the sense of a bike plan, and in years past, it was harshly shot down as some kind of conspiracy. And I got to think that's changed, and I want real, timely input on that. So, all the things that you were talking about doing as part of the work, it's spot on, I think. I do think there's been changes in the way people think about things. Some that will definitely stick with us. I'm definitely seeing it with my clients. The way people work has changed. A lot of my clients have shed office space like crazy. The hybrid work thing is not a fad. John, I know you're designing spaces, so you get probably a perspective on it too. But the way we engage with downtown is totally changing and emerging, and so I want that input. And I think you can get you can get good, you can get fast, and you can get cheap, right? You can get 2 out of 3 of those, but you can't get all. There's a trade-off. And we want good, and we want fast. And I think this town deserves that.
I think there's hours to task. You can cut back. You can say I want less. I want that. I understand that. There's data that's anecdotal. We could pick up the Wall Street Journal today or tomorrow, and we could get all the fads that are happening because of what happened to COVID. Or we can listen to what our community says about the same things and make sure we write the story based on our community's input. And I would tend to agree with you. I think they're running a company and having employees. They've all changed their model on how they look at the world. And come on down to my office in the city. There's only 5 people there at any given point in time, but I'm still paying rent because they want to be at home. And they haven't changed their mind. They've just realized that there's more important things in life to being home and having that balance. And that's not going to go away right away. It's going to be quite a while. And that's the younger. There's us older dogs. I still go in every day. I got to get to the office. That's just me. But the reality of it is it's changing. It would be interesting to find out what that means to our community, because I'll bet you a lot of things will change around here in terms of people are going to want little office spaces to get out of the house. It's already happening out there right now. These restaurants and all these things that are popping up and down the North Shore, it's not a fad. People don't want to go to the city right now. They want to hang out here and eat and be comfortable, safe, and secure. There's a perception of insecurity in the city of Chicago. That's going to go away, I think. But the reality of it is there's a lot of things that change. We can take the data from the outside world, read the papers, and put it in the plan, or we can talk to the community. And that's your, I can't make that decision. I believe in listening to the people. I do it for all the communities we work in around the country, and I want to do it here, but it's your call.
Yep.
If I can just chime in, I think there's 2 reasons to ask these questions. One is to sort of take the pulse of how much has it changed and how much is that change likely to stick. And that's the big question, right? So one, we have to ask our unique community what it thinks about COVID and the lasting impacts in terms of community in our town. The second thing is we have to tell them we asked.
Right.
Right? If we just, because I'm over 60, decided that things are thus and such and that's the way they are, and I don't go to the trouble of very publicly and carefully asking for input from the community, they're not going to accept the judgment that we as a community make about the future. We have to ask. Even if the answer is reassuring, changes are going to, not stick. And we have to ask the new people.
Right.
So we did make the point, and I'm glad Scott mentioned this, we're not just going back to the people we talked to before and said, what's new? But we're trying to find those new people who've moved in,
Right.
who are not only the same old people who may have changed their mind about the village, but actually new minds. So during the pandemic, I've been button hooking anybody who looks under the age of 35 who's moved in, because I want to know what they think. It matters more what they think of it 20 years from now than frankly what I think.
Why
But
is
I
that?
think, again, two things. What do we think changed? And yes, we are asking.
I think, my observation has been with younger families that, previously mothers had the opportunity to, juggle work life, be home, work, and it wasn't so much the fathers in our community were doing that. But that now so many more dads have had the opportunity to experience it. And, my initial impression is that they're interested in continuing to do that. So I think that's a really important piece of demographic information to know is that impression true, or are people likely to go back to their older habits? Because that will change the way the village is used if all working parents are more interested in spending more time in the village. So that's one piece of information that would be really important to dig into, which I'm sure you will. But yeah.
Okay. Before we get into deliberation, I just want to open it up. Teresa, do you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation here? If you do, you got to come up to the.
Once my glasses aren't on, I can wear them. I didn't come for this topic, but what strikes me is, for those who've been in the store, we're like Cheers. Good Grapes is like Cheers, right? People know each other and all that, and there's a lot of chatter amongst people. And I'm not saying you should do a survey or not. That's not my place to weigh in. But if you were leaning towards the survey, I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to use the businesses to promote in their weekly emails or biweekly to take the survey. Because when I talk to people about I'm a big proponent of you should take the caucus survey. And I'm not harping on the caucus. Almost no one knows about it. And I know this year when the caucus members told me, I think they went from like 5,000 to 2,200 or something. So I don't know. It's not my place to decide. I would just look at different ways. That's my only thought. Because while I have an okay email list, like the bookstall has 8,000 people. Now you'd have to limit it, but there are other businesses who have much larger lists than mine, especially the women's clothing stores. And I think that there's ways to tap into that if they were asked.
That's a good idea.
But it's not my place to say if you should do a survey or not.
Sure. Thanks, Teresa. Okay. I guess we bring it back up here and see if we can sort out whether this is something the council's comfortable going ahead with. One thing I would like to point out to start off the conversation is this plan should, in my mind, should have about a 20-year shelf life. So we're talking about a $2,000 a year investment in making sure that all the components of the plan were considering the new normal that we're dealing with today. None of us have in my opinion, none of us have a crystal ball. All I know is that my millennial children who are in the workplace, their companies are now moving to hybrid or fully remote. I mean, my son-in-law's in a tech firm out in the East Coast. You got 1,000 employees, and they're going completely virtual all the time. And instead of having offices now, they have, I forget what the term was, something like drop-in centers. So where you just pop in, have conversations with your coworkers, and then go back to your pod at home and do your thing. That's tech. I mean, it's not so there's going to be, there are, ostensibly there will be some lessons learned from COVID that businesses will adopt because they're either efficient or they're better in retaining workforce, or they facilitate whatever their particular mission is without having to lease expensive office space in downtown areas. But I would hate to have to look at this community 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, and find out that the plan was flawed because there were critical items that we miss at the savings of $2,000 a year. I don't like some of the stuff that's in there. I mean, I've never been a big fan of some of the sub-consultants that are being used on this project. And when you see large numbers attached to them, I bristle just because it's instinctual. But I have complete trust in Scott, and I have complete trust in Becky that this is the sort of thing that they believe is necessary to produce an absolutely Loctite plan for the future and for their future, because both of them are residents here. So with that, I'll just open it up to you guys and have at it, and once I've heard enough, we'll see if we can vote and get on to the next thing.
So maybe it's, I don't know if I can go back and ask the question of them again. If we don't approve this tonight, the money, how does the plan go ahead? What are we, what happens? If for some reason we say no, proceed where you left off. Follow their contract. What are we going to miss out on? I don't think that should be their answer, I think, but.
I think it's pretty obvious, John.
No,
What you miss out on is
it's not.
not double checking to make sure COVID is made profound changes.
The big tech companies in a big city are not Winnetka. Look at our businesses. We don't have 30-story high-rises. We don't have 2,000 office employees.
Where do you think the money that pays for all the big houses around here comes from? I mean,
They can still buy the big houses.
it comes from those of us going downtown every day.
Well,
Coming back here and paying taxes.
But again, going on a master plan of the village of Winnetka, I'm not so sure that's got a big input. That's just, you know how I feel, so.
I think what you're missing out on is the reevaluating of the demographics. Anecdotally, which I can't speak for factually and statistically,
Right.
I'll be curious to see what the numbers actually say.
Right.
I think they hit the nail on the head. There's a ton of young families that have moved up here, my street alone. I can name countless families that I know have moved up here who were not going to move up here before the pandemic.
Right.
They're going to be city people for life.
Yeah.
So I think we'd miss out on that for sure.
Yeah, so we're talking like bike trails, downtown overlay districts, zoning. That's all the same stuff. We can still look at.
Right.
We know we want a bike path, or most likely, right?
Well, like,
So it's,
zoning issues, like one of the big zoning issues that we've been going around about is the size of houses and how big can a house be, and when should we allow people a zoning variance for exceeding the minimum square footage. And I think the mindset up here has solidly been against liberally extending square footage because of concern about stormwater. But now you've got people that need a home office space from not just one person, but a lot of times, for both parents, that's quiet and separate. And then you've got the needs of parents that are trying to homeschool their kids that have never even thought about homeschool. And you have a completely different space requirement that dramatically expands your square footage requirements. Now, hopefully the school thing is a short thing. The working thing, that's with us for a long time. That is something we've never, I sat on zoning for years, and then I came here. That is not something we ever talked about, not once. We didn't think about it. It wasn't in our thinking when we originally asked these questions. So I think that's a big deal. I remember the discussion we had about special use permits and what kind of businesses we were going to permit. And we had a good, robust discussion about that pre-COVID. And we were like, well, hell no, we don't want lawyers. And I, as a lawyer, agree with that. That's bad for business. No one wants to see that. But, we talked about experiential businesses and kind of liberalizing things along those lines. But we didn't have a good discussion about co-working spaces. And there's a huge need there, I think, that's not being met. Penny, you touched on, fathers, engaging with their kids for the, probably the first. I'm a good example of that. My kids were born. I I remember when my oldest was born, I was working while my wife was giving birth. I was standing next to her doing timesheets that had to be closed for the day. It was horrible, and but I did what and, in the last 18 months, I've gotten a totally different view, and that then is going to change what people want in this town. So I do think there's things, there's been complete turnover in the people living around, just in the house.
And if you go back to yours, it's like maybe there's 8 or 10 questions, right? It's not $44,000 of questions.
Well, so you raise a good point. So, I'll just tell you the way I always approach these things, and maybe it's just a different philosophical approach, and I would totally agree to disagree on it. But our staff, time and time, I think, sharpens the pencils. I don't view my job as, frankly, managing the nuts and bolts. If I feel like something is brought to us that's way off the rails, I'll definitely speak up. But by and large, I put a lot of faith and trust that David and, that you guys have had the discussion. I don't have, honestly, if we wanted to sharpen the pencil, I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the inclination, and I don't think anybody in this town wants me doing that. We set budget overall for the year. These guys always come in under it. They keep us on track. And so I put a lot of faith and trust in them. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus if it's wrong or whatever, because, I would never do that either. But I just feel like 44,000, there's a materiality standard that I don't think is tripped. And that may be just just differ.
Yeah. I'm in a similar business.
Jump in.
Yeah, and so you have.
In my mind, it's a great opportunity to make up some overtime I spent in a project previously, just by showing my timesheets. And that's just not a good way to catch up. And that's my opinion, and we can agree to disagree, which is fine. That's why we're all here. So
I am falling in the middle here, where I think there can be some startup, but I really do think doing this type of in-depth, I look at what our work at Kellogg, we have a massive executive education, and those people, instead of going remote, all the employees said, no, we want to wait until it goes back in person. It will snap back. We've seen it at 50 companies I'm working with right now. So I just think we have to be careful that we're doing this in a vulnerable moment in time, that the results, forget the money, I'm just saying what results we're looking at. But I understand there's a startup. I think there's somewhere where we can streamline this, still give some money, which I think is a good faith effort of work they're going to do, and move along and just streamline the questions and get this done for $25,000 or whatever it's going to be, and just move forward quickly.
I'd like to weigh in just a little bit. We, as Scott knows, we did review these numbers very carefully. I think we revised them downward at least 2 times before it was brought to bring you what we thought was the absolute lowest amount for the work. There are a couple things, though. Engaging people, whether it's a survey and community events, are heavy on staff time. And a lot of those hours you'll see in there is the amount of time it takes to engage, but then analyze what the results of that engagement really was. So that there's a bundle of time there. I also think that there's a significant number of people who missed out on the conversation from where we were before. If you look at our census data, we grew by almost 5%. There's 540 some new residents here. I would guess 500 of them are kids. But all of them have, parents who are probably going to weigh in to some extent. So there's an opportunity to re-engage in a meaningful way and get their feedback, and maybe it is, tweaking around the edges, and maybe it's more of a substantive change. We don't know until you ask.
Right.
The other part of this is the real estate market has done a 180 since we started this project, and I'm hopeful that trajectory stays that way. Mm-hmm. But we need refreshed data, especially on real estate, since it's really the #1 business in town.
Right.
It'll snap back right before I sell my house.
Yeah, I hear you.
I hope it doesn't snap.
Well, let's call it level out. But
Sell now.
But we did look at the contract a couple of times, and to Trustee Swerk's point, I've never had a planning assignment hit a pause before, so that's not typically language that I've seen in my career. But I hear your point. So going forward, it might be something that we would look at as we go for future contracts.
Although I would note that this pause is not just that we took a pause in the work, but there was a cultural change during that shift, and we will to a certain extent change back, but also some things are permanently changed. And we can sit up here and guess. And some of the data does need to be revisited because, you know, there has been change. So I personally think it's worth the investment because it's a unique point in time. For our village, it's been a moment of, I mean, you know, you go out on the streets and you visit the town at night and you get the sense of vitality that we haven't had here in a long time. So if we can capture what is it, you know, why, what brought people here, what are they enjoying about this vitality, how can we hang on to this? Let's take advantage of that because, again, this is the kind of thing that will allow our village to really prosper.
No, I do, going on that same point, I love the personas that you have in there, and the quotes, I resonated well from for a variety of reasons. I'm curious if you guys have percentages of what those personas are from the past and what they will be once we reanalyze this. I know you'll get a list of new 542 new residents, but do we understand where they fall into this, and then also who's moved out?
Right.
Who's now doing the 6 months plus one somewhere else, or maybe doesn't even have a presence in Winnetka that did 18 months ago?
Great question.
I don't know how we find that out, but.
Bob, you've been awful quiet.
Well, good conversation, actually. And John, I really appreciate you bringing this up because, you know, spending, I think, is always good to be looked at. That's our responsibility. On this one, I'll probably disagree with some of my compatriots on the frugality front here, only in that if we assume that this was a document that was going to be put on the top shelf with a bunch of dust collecting, I'd say don't spend the money. But, I mean, I really view this initiative as kind of mission critical in our thinking going forward. And I'm not going to say that the money is insignificant, but to Andy's point, in the context of the overall budget, you know, I've seen the budget, you know, it gets the balloon gets a little heavy over here, and then we take it out of here, and it moves all around. So this is a little bit of a rounding error, and I'm going to put my faith a little bit in the Lakota group and Scott and Becky and the others. And if it can make that document just that much more impactful and important going forward, I think it's worth the money, even though maybe it's worth $20,000, maybe it's worth $32,000. I don't know what it's worth, but if this can get us a document that is truly a working document for the next, let's call it 5 to 10 years even, I think it's really mission critical. So I'd go with it.
You know, Bob, you make a good point. This is a living document. And Penny, I think you'll be the first to admit that one of the struggles you had in the 2020 plan was how do we keep this thing viable as it moves through 2 decades? And Appendix 6, was it, Becky? I mean, how long did we work on that?
Yeah, right.
See, and they tried to make it a living document by incorporating a requirement that that certain aspects of it would be revisited and re-updated. But because, I don't know what happened, but I don't think people understood it, and the conversation got so bogged down that we never got there, even though the idea was good. And I think we have some lessons learned on that, because I'd say, you know, at some point, the town was changing. We were trying, when I was on Plan Commission, which is what, 10 years ago now? That we were struggling with how do we update this and how do we have these Appendix 6 conversations and what does it mean? And so, you know, hopefully as you're going through it, Becky, you'll remember the appendix and maybe think of a way that this thing continues to live beyond today and can actually be a workable document so that we're not looking at it in 20 years thinking, oh my God, now it's too old and we got to panic and hopefully go hire Scott again. So, but, you know, and that is an important piece, that this isn't just put it up on the shelf like design review or some of the other things that have found their way up there. I mean, this is something that is going to guide the decisions of this council for the next 10 years. And it's going to guide the council in policy discussions. It's going to guide our plan commission and our zoning board in land use issues. And I would hate to think for a relatively small amount of money in the overall budget, especially when I think, Rob, you even spoke to how you balance this over the current expenditures and next year's expenditures, that we get something that is really, really, really on the mark, and we can hand it on to the future generations with the knowledge that we're giving them something that is a community vetted document and a community vetted guideline. So that's my 2 cents, but I don't get to vote unless.
I mean, the truth on this, Chris, is that, like in business, if you make an investment, you have a plan for how that investment is going to play out and so on, and typically it's not going to play out exactly like that, but it might play out in a way, in a 20% of a way that makes up for every other way that it didn't play out. And so I don't know if there's going to be a kernel of information that comes out of this additional surveying of the residents. It might be something we don't even think about right now. But if there's something that comes out of it, it'll make that $40,000 seem very insignificant. If it actually leads to an important decision, an important policy, an important direction we go, we may not even know what that is. But my guess is something will come out of that.
Yeah. So.
I have a silly question. Do we call this the 2042 plan now? I mean, for real. I mean, do we update it so it's a 20-year plan?
We'll call it whatever you guys want to
Yeah,
call
I'm just,
it. It's Winnetka Futures 2040, so maybe we go 2042, and that'll get us on a different cycle then, too, right? But then, does that mean we're living 2 years without a comp plan since 2020
Yes.
is behind us now?
that's what we have done, right?
Pretty much so. I will admit that I've deferred a lot of important conversations because we wanted to hear what the community had to
Yeah,
say.
we did a lot of that.
Including historic homes. I mean, that's,
Yeah, well.
we'll worry
there was
about that. We'll
something
push that down the street.
Oh, I forgot about that one, yeah, that's
Chris, I
Well, we
think,
can either keep piecemealing it, or we can get a good broad-based directive.
Chris, I know you were kind of joking, but how do we get this in August of 2022? I mean, I hate to say it, but now we got.
I walk by Scott's house every night, and actually I walk by Becky's house every morning. That's the way you do it.
I do think it's now what would be a fast, cheap, and good. Now we're going to do, hopefully, if we're paying for this, hopefully this will give us August. But I think we wait till the end of next year. I just think it's crazy. I've never given that much time for anything that we've done.
Well, the engagement is the one piece.
I get it.
And now look now we're back in masks, and who would have thought that a month ago? So, the environment is changing so much.
Slightly unusual circumstances.
And tell Andrea she doesn't have to hide from me, okay? I promise that I won't bend her ear on this issue at all, Scott. So, all right, well, let's see where we're at on this. Okay, do I have a motion to adopt resolution number I scribbled all over it.
71, 21,
70,
One.
R71,
2021.
2021, sorry, folks. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Second?
Roll call vote.
Trustee Lampier,
Yes.
Trustee Swerk,
No.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes?
Trustee Mancini,
Yes.
Trustee Kripe,
Yes.
Trustee Apatow.
He's in the maybe category.
You guys broke Trustee Apple.
Yes.
Motion carries, thank you. Good work, guys. All right, moving right along, thank you, Becky, thank you. If Friedman can cut his hours anyway.
We're just gonna take it, lawyers
Talk
always
to
get the
him.
short end of this.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yes, they should.
Nobody likes the lawyers.
They should still done the work. They still should have done it.
Well, here, now let's get all the other work done before Bayhand
We
gets
have
back.
Not in the contract. Their contract was fine.
Now we lost the village attorney,
No,
too.
no,
We
we don't.
shouldn't-
My middle son.
Can't do anything.
He would always get.
Then they shouldn't do it.
We're not used to long meetings anymore.
They're responsible for what they do.
Should be done.
And they have to go through our reviews.
I used
We
to.
took them in.
Reviews of us and our
Oh,
contract.
do I?
Get a steroid, whatever.
Yeah.
She's like, if you guys get Larry.
Oh, you must have a newer.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I used to take Charlie, actually, we lived on Prescott, we came down to Tower Beach.
Yeah.
Chris Bryant, 2 home runs yesterday.
And Ella, when she was 18, and if they just missed 6 degrees high, and the doctor said, drive around the windows open.
Yeah.
So sure enough, drive around the windows open, she has like all her
they're 18 months old, something like this, try to open airways.
That's some scary.
Well, RSV is the scary one.
But there wasn't old, they still have other things.
Correction.
That's the thing.
Yeah, we had to make some runs down to the hospital for oxygen.
Yeah, oh.
Those four things.
Anyway.
Or these four things.
There were other things
They're over it.
in need really.
Yeah.
They've done,
Yeah.
but it's not, you look at this.
No.
I mean, what they're talking about, what they're working on is the engagement, the public, where you have public interface.
And you can't look at the hours they've spent.
No one was gonna
No
say.
one, yes.
So,
When I
mean,
do a
all of
fixed
this-
Now no
all
one
of
has
this
the
stuff
immunity
is-
to anything.
When I do a fixed contract,
You may have to go
it's a reduced hourly.
Not
fee.
right.
I've heard that.
In town.
Have it go back and actually pull my hours together.
Christina was
There's
talking
been,
It was over
there's
contract.
been no,
You know,
On a full hourly basis.
on a $250,000 contract,
yeah,
I'm not gonna charge someone $250 an hour.
I'm not, we have our first
Or if I happen to go over budget, because
Thursday, we went down to, fortunately before we got sick.
Tension,
Um,
making up for some of
I'm
that
not-
correct,
discounted
right,
hourly.
yeah, a day, like,
I guess, what, I mean, how can we do that? I mean,
right,
Yeah, you have to worry
oh,
about
sorry.
maybe you're isolating even more than.
It was somebody talking. No, we're just waiting for you. You okay? Yeah. All right, let's get this show back on the road. Item number 10, new business. Phase 4 Streetscape Concepts Policy Direction. The first 3 phases of Streetscape having been implemented, the council tonight will consider the concept plans for Phase 4. Tonight, David Schoen and Jody Mariano from Tesco will review. And what I'd like to do here is really be diligent. When David finishes his presentation, David and Joni finish their presentation, let's just ask them questions. I'd like to hear from, we have a member of the public who I'm sure would like to weigh in on this. I'd like to hear what Teresa has to say. And then we'll bring it back up for comments and additional discussion. So David, take it away.
Having a little technology issue. There we go. Yes, so we're here this evening to talk about Phase 4. As President Rintz said, we have completed, nearly completed the third phase. We have some items we need to finish up, but we've completed phases 1 through 3. Just went away. Completed phases 1 through 3, which were identified in the downtown streetscape plan. And then we had identified the other streetscape elements to be completed at the time that other redevelopment projects occurred. So that includes areas around the post office site and areas around what we commonly still refer to as the One Winnetka site. And so what staff has done is we've identified some projects that we can move forward with independent of the redevelopment of those 2 sites. And so we have started on the west side, and Jody will go over those streetscape elements that we've identified. What I would like to mention at this point, we've also identified then some infrastructure projects that we would like to implement at this time. Some water main work, which we'll show you that in a minute, as well as relocating some underground electric transformers. And then we had also had planned a Village Hall parking lot reconstruction, as we've done with other downtown parking lots. And so we've coordinated those projects along with the streetscape project. Here, let me. Okay. Jody. She'll do most of the presentation.
I'm afraid to touch anything.
At least it's not Zoom.
We have different issues on here.
Yeah, so I'm going to turn it over to Jody at this point in time to go over the various elements of the project, and then I'll come back to talk with you about the cost aspects of the project.
Wonderful. Thank you, David, and good evening, everyone. I'm so glad to be here live and in person, not on a TV screen. So I'm here to take you through the streetscape elements that David described. And so, as you know, phases 1, 2, and 3 are complete, or 3 is nearing very close to finished 100%. And they're getting great use. As many of you know, I live nearby, and it's been a real joy to come through here from the winter time to the spring and now in the warm summer, and just to see all of the activity in and around the downtown area. It's, I'm sure partly because of pandemic, but it's been wonderful to see all of the streetscapes getting good use in all the various areas. So phases 1, 2, and 3 we're familiar with. Phase 4 I'm going to take you through, but as many of you may know, where phases 1, 2, and 3 sort of left off, many of them were mid-block. And so there's areas where we've identified the phase 4 areas to be that would complete that work so that the full downtown is fully completed. So I'll show you some of those, but as you can see in the images here, there are some areas that need to be addressed: sidewalk cracking, pavement repair, ADA detectable warnings, trees that are in poor condition. At the same time, there's some true gems in downtown that we want to take good care of, that being Moffett Mall, for one. So we can talk through that as well. The overall streetscape project types are listed here. The legend at the top right shows the different types of work that are being planned. So the water main work David described is in that yellow or that blue W, and that is generally in the area south of Elm Street, around Moffett Mall, and along part of Oak Street, and I'll show you a diagram for that. The electrical work is the area generally around Moffett Mall also. That's taking out electrical transformers that are in the center median and relocating them. The streetscape items are identified with blue S, and those are working from south to north. Oak Street streetscape, the Chestnut Street and Chestnut Court or Moffett Mall streetscapes. Portions of Elm Street west of Chestnut Street, including some holiday lighting infrastructure, and then portion of Spruce Street up at the north. As far as the public parking lot enhancements, those are just landscape improvements. Those are identified with the green Ps, so that's the Birch and Spruce Street up near Spruce, and also the Village Hall parking lot as well. And that includes parking lot reconstruction and landscaping for the Village Hall lot. A little bit about the water main construction and the electrical transformer. So here's a zoom in looking south of Elm Street around Moffett Mall. We've got water main construction, and it's connecting to the existing mains at Chestnut and Elm and also at Green Bay Road. The electrical transformer is taking those transformers outside of the Moffett Mall area. There would be some pavement and landscape restoration associated with that, and I can share that with you as well. But the two transformers are identified with those red T's generally at their location. We did get a tree report from the Forestry Department, and so they went through and identified all of the trees. A summary of all of those items are here. Generally, we're planning to preserve as many trees as we can. Just to focus in on the trees to be removed, on Chestnut Street there are 3 true trees, 2 stumps. But the 3 trees to be removed are in poor condition, and we've got some imagery if anybody wants to see specific photographs, we've got that as well. Chestnut Court, 1 stump, 1 in poor condition. So otherwise, preserving the trees. Altogether, including the stumps, we're taking out 8 trees. We're putting back 17 new trees. So we're increasing our urban tree canopy, which is always a good thing. So a little bit about the streetscapes. I'm going to start from south to north. So north is pointing to the right, but we're looking at Chestnut Street. Elm Street is off on the right-hand side. I'm afraid to touch this computer too much. But Chestnut Street on the east side, as David mentioned, we're just looking at the roadway surface, but also the east side sidewalks and streetscape improvements. Generally, to continue the theme as to what's happening along Chestnut Street to the north, carry that to the south. We've also looked at wrapping the streetscape improvements around to Oak Street down to the alleyway. And that bump out at Oak Street and Chestnut Street seemed to be a really good opportunity for a gateway into downtown. Lots of great things are happening on the
Can you repeat
private
that?
side.
I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, the intersection, that corner at Oak and Chestnut, we see as a gateway into downtown.
Okay.
There are restaurants that are over there doing great business, and we want to make sure we provide some great public space there for them. Highlights of the things that are planned here from the roadway side is improving the roadway, curb, sidewalks, and crosswalks. The water and electric work, as I mentioned earlier, we've got that water main extending to Green Bay Road. We've got underground electrical to support holiday tree lighting and also new lighting. And then there are some places throughout the streetscape plan where we've been thinking ahead about providing empty conduit for future lighting. So in this case, anticipating future bollard lights at Chestnut and Chestnut Court. The streetscape work includes tree protection, new trees. Just like we've been doing, all of the new trees would include structural soils and tree grates where we can. Pedestrian lighting, furnishings, all of the things that you've seen in the other phases. And then that corner bump out that I mentioned. And I'm going to speak to Moffett Mall here at this next one. So here north is up, as you know. We're here at Village Hall, is on the right-hand side of the slide. Moffett Mall, as everybody knows, is truly one of the most special places in the North Shore. And so we want to make sure that we take good care of it. Those electrical transformers are existing underground within that median. And so the scope is to remove those and relocate them out of the Moffett Mall area for better maintenance and functionality. In doing that, there would be some pavement restoration, landscape restoration. Also, there is a budget line item to work with the Garden Club to provide whatever additional landscape restoration or adjustments or additional landscape materials they would like to see. But otherwise, the intent is to keep that median as is. We have looked at, and we're proposing, a couple of very modest changes to make the median area more accessible to the sidewalks and spaces surrounding it. So what that means is at the Village Hall side, we've made some recommendations to improve that bump out there between Village Hall and the median with additional benches and planter pots. We've also recommended including additional crosswalks and detectable warnings so that if somebody were at the sidewalk in front of the restaurants, for instance, or at Lakeside Foods, they can make that diagonal walking movement to get safely to Village Hall. And we've also recommended this wide brick crosswalk area that, I wonder if I could still point without throwing stuff off. Can I? No. So that wide brick crosswalk that runs east-west, that would make a more formal unification between Village Hall and the median area. Likewise, on the west side, we've bumped out the nose ever so slightly just to make a grander gesture and make it more accessible for folks to come through. New crosswalks, detectable warnings, and all of the other things that you see in the other parts of the crosswalks. A couple of trees to be replaced. And one thing to note, which isn't really very clear on this drawing, is that we looked at different pavement surface treatments for Chestnut Court itself. And the recommendation in what's part of the budget is to treat the roadway surface with concrete. By doing that, what that does is it really will make it feel more like a plaza. It will make it feel like it's the same material as the sidewalk adjacent to it. Gosh, just seeing what's happening outside right now, I mean, it's a really amazing space. And so we know that we don't want to do anything too dramatic, but just making it a concrete surface will go a really long way to really set it apart and make it feel like a special place. And we can do things with joint patterning to make it, set it off so it's not just a boring old street. That one was probably the most involved. Working our way to the north, this is Elm Street, west of Chestnut Street. So you might recall we completed the streetscape up to Crystal Cleaners, and so this takes the streetscape improvements further to the west all the way to Birch Street. So it's just modest concrete repair and tree replacements, and then intersection corner treatments and crosswalks. On the south side, there is budget to replace the underground electrical. Today, the underground electrical is not as formalized as it should be, and so that will support the holiday tree lighting. So we have the new lighting, new trees, holiday lighting for the trees as well.
Jody, is that what the red box is?
That's what the red box is,
Okay.
yeah. We're not proposing, because of the potential future redevelopment, we're not proposing any other changes to the sidewalk at this time. Next section is up to the north, so Spruce Street and Chestnut Street again is at my right. And so just like before, this picks up where the streetscape left off, just west of the Grand, and it continues it all the way to Birch Street. This street has a slightly different character. This has got lawn parkways, so the lawn parkways would remain. The existing trees would remain, but we're including underground electrical, and we've got curb sidewalks and crosswalks and pedestrian lights into this area. The Birch and Spruce Street parking lot is in need of some landscape help, some editing. And so these photos show what's out there today. As you guys might have seen, there's a lot of landscape material that's rather overgrown. Particularly when we're close to sidewalks, I get very sensitive about having material that doesn't get too high so that we can maintain great visibility, make people feel safer when they're walking down the street or down the sidewalk. So the landscape plan that's shown here, we're using a salt tolerant and native derived type plant material palette. We've got existing trees that for the most part would all be protected with the exception of I think a couple that were just in really poor quality. Otherwise it's replacing the understory with low height shrubs and perennial plantings. And then the Village Hall parking lot, the game plan for the Village Hall parking lot is to improve the surface itself and to incorporate drainage structures and sustainable materials like drainage rock and permeable paving into the parking lot itself, and then landscape plantings along the two perimeter faces, Oak and Green Bay Road there.
Can I ask a quick question while we're on this frame? That's where we do the farmer's market, and it's hotter than the surface of the sun. And I don't know what the landscaping will entail, but is there a way we can improve the shade either with islands that provide some breaks or something? 'Cause it is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, so you're talking about parking lot organization, and we know that parking is a premium out here, but there is a center island, which is a single bay, and we could consider if there was an interest to do that, it would probably come at a sacrifice of 1 or 2 spaces to create those end caps, but agree with you completely. All of the trees in the perimeters are not going to be able to throw the shade you need on the side in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, if we could get some shade trees that.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, and it's a very poorly defined space. It's just, and Andy, I agree with you completely because that has become a multi-use, and it was used for, when the music festival was there. I mean, it was a great spot to do stuff, and I'm always in favor of providing more shade whenever possible. But, it's a defining corner of the village. So, if we can make it amenable to being a multi-use space, let's do it, right?
Yeah, no, it's a great
And are we
point.
putting electrical there for the farmer's market? Are we anticipating other utilitarian needs for that space?
That's a really good point. We had not incorporated additional electrical, and we can talk with staff to determine what electrical is out there, but if you're going to be having events, you would want to have that ability to plug in for sure.
Good idea.
There's electrical there now. There was electrical that was dropped there when the Village Hall was being rehabbed, and it seems to be sufficient for what the vendors need, but while it's tore up, if there's an opportunity to drop some more access points, that would probably be a good idea.
The Ferris wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was it. So I'm going to turn it back to David to speak to the costs. I will just mention really quickly, we used the unit cost pricing that the contractor has been working with over the last 3 phases, but we also have used the more recent pricing for streetscapes and other streetscapes that are being constructed along the North Shore. And I will just mention that that contractor who has constructed phases 1, 2, and 3, as you may know, has been able to hold his prices from phase 1 before phases 2 and 3. So it's been a very good buy for the village to be able to take advantage of that. So the pricing that has been developed here in coordination with the engineer and also with staff is using current pricing based on what we're seeing today.
Can I ask Jody a quick question before she steps down?
Sure.
I was just curious on the Chestnut Court, where exactly is the transformer that's existing right now that needs to be removed?
Sure. So there are 2 transformers. I think Jim is here who might know more. There are 2 transformers in the center, but you might know better.
I don't want to speak for Brian Keys because electrical is not. But they're in the center.
Jim, and for the record, Brian Keys and his crews had a water main break that went till 3 in the morning.
Oh,
so
no
we
way.
told them that we could handle it for them.
Oh, man. Yeah, great.
Yes.
Excellent.
So the 2 transformers that exist there now, they're actually in that center island. There's large vaults that are underground, and there's caps that allow them to get in and access it and do maintenance on it. So the game plan is by removing the transformer to the post office parking lot, we can basically abandon those locations
Yeah.
there.
Where are they, Jim?
Yeah, but where are they?
Up by the fountain, aren't they?
There's one both east and west of the center. So if you look at the circle, there's one basically kind of midpoint to the west and one midpoint to the east. That's
Like
the 2 locations.
underground.
If you walk on the island, you'll see the large
Okay.
openings for the structure.
So it's right smack in the middle of the mall.
Right
They both
smack
are.
in the mall, right.
Okay. Oh, that's really unfortunate. Okay, thank you.
So talking about the cost of the project, as Jody said, we have adjusted the numbers for more current market rate prices. The other thing I just want to note that this is a concept plan. So if we receive council's approval, then we will work with the design consultants to develop construction documents and more detailed plans, thus more refined cost estimates. So all of these cost estimates have a 10% contingency built into them. So I wanted to make you aware of that. So the top 3 items are the other infrastructure projects we're doing along with the Streetscape project. The Village Hall parking lot, Spruce Street parking lot landscaping, the transformer relocation, and the water main work. And then item 4 and those sub-items are what we would think of as the streetscape elements when we talked about the other streetscape projects for phase 1 through phase 3. So the streetscape elements, which includes not just street furnishings or the light fixtures, but includes roadway, sidewalk improvements as part of that, and that's broken down there. So the phase 4 streetscape would be $2.4 million. Total of all the projects is the 3.2. For comparison, phase 1,
2.4?
2.04.
04, sorry, 2.04, sorry. Phase 1,
Rounding error.
to recall, was Chestnut north of Elm, including the Elm Street intersection and then some of Spruce. That was $1.89 million. So that, just to give you a comparison of this project. This project, we're doing the same streetscape elements and treatments. The area's a little larger in size, but different areas we're doing a little less than others. So I'm just pointing this out, that we're not doing anything above and beyond what we've done with the rest of the streetscape. We're applying those streetscape elements to this phase. The Village Hall parking lot was already budgeted in next year's capital improvements program. The water fund annually budgets funds for water main projects such as this. So that would be part of that for next year. And then the transformer relocation, however, is something new, out of the ordinary, but our goal is to get out of the underground transformer business, 1, because of maintenance issues, and then 2, we really don't have the ability to add capacity in their current location. so relocating them would allow us to do that in the future. Streetscape, the Streetscape 4 elements currently are not budgeted in the 5-year capital improvements program. We've reviewed the fund with the village manager and the finance director and have determined based on accumulated fund balances, plus a continuation of the $1.65 million that we've been making to the business district revitalization funds, that we should have sufficient revenues for this project in next year.
And that's for the $2 million.
Correct. Correct. The other 3 projects come out of other funds. So this evening, we're here to answer any questions on this concept for Phase 4, and we're also looking for direction from you whether to move forward with designing it yet this year for construction next year.
Yep.
So if you do direct us to move forward, the next step is we would return for your approval of a contract with the design professionals to prepare the construction documents.
I'd just like to add a couple things too to clarify, guys. Some of the pieces of this particular proposal were not included in the original streetscape plan. But it's interesting, you know, a lot of times you do a project and all of a sudden you realize there's something you missed. And so if you think about Spruce Street, they stopped it at you know, right there at the alleyway. And we just had a new business come into town, invest almost $2 million in the Savocci shop. One of the reasons I was able to induce him into buying that building and making the improvements was that I showed him the parking lot, which at that point he declared it looked like it was from the 1950s, which had probably the last time it was planted was the 1950s. And the other thing is that I'm sorry, at some point I got to play developer when I do this. And it occurred to me that along Spruce Street you have the Compass building, which has a drive-through attached to it. Then you have the Chase facility, which also has a drive-through. And then you have the frontage on the Grand Food Shopping Center that faces Spruce Street as well. And it occurred to me that if you start to bring those streetscape items down, that you really create an atmosphere where people coming in looking to invest private capital will look at it and envision it as part of the downtown. And you really start to create an atmosphere that is definitely a commercial district and can be used for that. Likewise, if you walk down Elm Street heading west, you hit Ellen's, and then everything just drops off the face of the earth, and it makes no sense whatsoever. You know, we were trying to be really responsible and keep it to the bare minimum, but now you look at that, and the lighting is wrong, the trees are dead, the grates are in miserable shape, the old cheap brick is on the corner there now, so it really is just more of a cleanup there. And again, to try to create an atmosphere that this is a district with distinct boundaries, because right now they're just kind of all over the place. And then David and Rob actually thought really hard about the Oak Street extension and turning the corner there. Of course, you know, there are businesses there, lo and behold, and, you know, integrating that and making it part of the downtown and wrapping it around the corner all the way to Green Bay Road seemed to make a lot of sense to close the district in and again, create perceivable boundaries and more space for businesses to grow out into the sidewalk as they go along. So I will take the appropriate flogging for adding things to the original scope, but I thought they were worthwhile. And if you guys really have issues with it, I would suggest taking the pieces that you're not comfortable with. If we get to that point, bid them as alternates, and then, you know, when the numbers come in, we can make a decision whether or not we want to do them or not. But it seems to me that the job in those locations, especially over on the west end, were incomplete and really needed some polish, and that parking lot is just an embarrassment. I mean, you go to Lake Forest, and, you know, you go to the parking lot that's behind Market Square. It's beautifully landscaped. It's actually a nice place to be, you know?
So which parking lot are you referring to right now? The Village lot? Or
Spruce.
the, well, that one isn't,
Spruce and Birch.
it's not as awful as the Village lot. The Village lot is way worse than that one.
Oh, no, and Spruce and Birch is just landscape cleanup and lighting.
Oh, right.
So,
The actual,
And what's the
actual
cost
lot,
associated?
the actual lot was improved a couple
Yeah,
of years.
I mean, I was
Yeah,
going to
the
say, the
lot's
lot
brand
itself
new.
is good.
So the last lot to be improved to the standard that we had established for the community house lot, the Elm
Right.
Station lot, and the other
Yep.
two on Birch, this lot will be brought up to speed.
What's
The
the-
underground pavers and the.
What's the cost associated with the birch spruce?
we'll
lot?
get to that in a minute, Penny.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So, because obviously, if it's a crazy number, we'll just cut all the bushes.
Yeah, I was going to say, right, I just wasn't sure what that was. Thank you.
So, anyway, but I just wanted to fess up and, you know, let everybody know that
It's-
I've had my fingers in the pie here.
The bad news about Streetscape and how good now parts of the village look is that the ones that haven't been touched yet don't look quite so fabulous anymore,
And
right?
people notice it now, too. Why'd you stop here? Anyway, now you can have your questions for David and Jody.
I'll start. I'll be bearer of bad news. Only kidding. All right. No,
There's no bad news.
I like adding,
Formed opinions.
I liked adding the pieces you added, which is good. Is this a good time to ask questions and maybe it's stuff you want to add or change? Or is this not the spot?
You know what? I'll tell you what. Let's let Teresa come on up and share her thoughts, and then we can roll up our sleeves and get into the whole mess. How's
Good.
that sound?
Great.
Thank you. So I have a series of questions and requests. You know, so there's probably like 6 or 7, but I have a couple based on what I just learned that I'm going to put right at the front because I'm confident I misunderstood. So when you're talking about crossing into Moffett Mall and there's detectable warnings, do you mean sound?
No, it's an iron plate that are also throughout the rest of downtown. It's an iron plate that happens at the crosswalk that has little raised circles.
Okay.
So it's just to alert somebody that is seeing or impaired that there's a crosswalk.
For the seeing impaired, thank you. And then you mentioned that there were going to be crosswalks on each side, if I understood correctly, so that there was more than one way to get into Moffett Mall. Did I understand that?
So the ones that we're adding, yes, are on the east side, close to Village Hall. So for instance, if somebody was standing at Lakeside Foods today and wanted to get to Village Hall, they would just sort of wander into the street and it wouldn't be defined. So this would be a painted crosswalk that would lead them from Lakeside Foods diagonally
Coming
right
this
into
way,
Village Hall.
not taking away parking spots coming this way.
Correct, no parking spots are
Okay.
being taken.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I can't read my own handwriting. That took care of the bump out. Okay, so now these were my general, just from looking over it. And so I'm glad you mentioned the increase in scope, because I thought I was having brain fog due to my age. So I'm like, boy, I don't remember this being this big before. And so can you kind of ballpark for me? Because when I hear that, and I'm not opposed to it, but I hear longer duration of construction.
Oh, construction. Would you like me to?
Yeah, sure, I would love to, yeah.
And Jim, feel free. I mean, so as David mentioned, this is a concept plan only. We haven't yet talked about how the construction phasing would take place, but construction phasing would be something that would be sorted out in the next phase of design. I will say in all the streetscapes that I've worked with in the past, typically streetscapes are built half of a street at a time. So one half of the street always has the right of way and one half of the street always has parking, and then the contractors flip over. We would have to work with staff and with the contractor to determine what's the right way to do it. It's imperative to make sure that your business is always operating and that you always have good, safe access in and out for deliveries and also for patrons. And so that would be something that would have to be determined. But we have not yet figured out how the construction phasing would work.
And so, I expected that. And so, and I appreciate that, but having gone through phase 4, I think we need to recognize during the first 3 phases, there were businesses where you could not get in and out of them. And so, and I know he has to work through them, but I would say if Chestnut Court and Chestnut Street will simultaneously closed for me, it kills me, right? I mean, I'm just dead in the water. There's no way to get to my store. So I would just throw that out. And I knew that the phasing wasn't all the way, I didn't expect that, but I want that to be really noted, and I'm not going to speak for the other businesses, but we're all on the same side of the block, so that's my thing. Okay, and then, I think January is a great time to start construction.
Florida.
So I really liked your point about what's in the contract, and so I would just encourage whatever, like weather dependent, the sooner we can get in, right? Because it's just been a long 2 years, and it's no one's fault. It's just been a really long 2 years. So it would kill me to be sitting there in March and have an unseasonably warm March and nothing has started yet. So, and I know there's a lot to that in the construction contracts, but that would just be like my input. And then, and this might be too detailed, are new benches going into Moffett Mall?
Oh, I can speak to that. So in Moffett Mall itself,
Right.
today we have the really nice teak wood benches. Those would stay exactly the same. There would not be new benches planned. The only thing that's new that's planned in Moffett Mall as far as site furnishings goes is replacing those two big aggregate trash bins with proper trash bins.
So if we're not going to replace the benches, I know I'm in the weeds, but I feel like if I'm not here now, I'm not going to get an opportunity. Maybe they could be stained or something, so they might be considered nice, but they're really worn out. And so if you don't want to put in steel, which I'm not in favor of, but just something to spruce them up, if you're going to do all this work and then have these worn out benches, I think that's a missed opportunity. Okay, and my next thing is that, between the stunning flowers, the benches, the water fountain, the bushes, and the trees, Moffett Mall is the most desirable gathering place in Winnetka, hands down. And it's not just my opinion, hands down. And so for those of us who were around in the beginning of the streetscape, and all of us used to come, a lot of the conversation was around a lot of these changes are going to enhance the gathering places so that more residents can gather. So with that, I'd like you to consider Moffett Mall needs better lighting, in my opinion. I shouldn't say this. And so I think if you look at some other areas and other, whether it's the city or suburbs, there's permanent lighting that can go up on the trees. So that while the tree lights are good, they're not conducive to a lot of foot traffic in there at night. And I think between how Moffett Mall is evolving as the destination place, mostly due to Bruno, I have like 5% impact on that, but that's Bruno, that we really, I think there's a chance, an opportunity to showcase it more. And you could also do the holidays, breast cancer awareness. Like, I think you could just do more with not significant amount of expenditure. That would help. Because I can tell you, just personally for me, between now and the end of the year, I have 5 events planned. And Moffett Mall, the more people that come in there, they're stunned by it. And I think there's just an opportunity to show it off more. I don't know what's in the budget, but that's my thing. Okay, now I'm going to get all about me. So I have a couple of requests. I'm really concerned. I don't want to downplay that. I'm not here to debate it. I understand it's going. Because I've talked to other businesses, I know what happened to the wine shop in Wilmette. I am, and you can say it's on the docket, someone will write it down. I'm requesting that the 2 parking spots in the post office's north parking lot next to the van accessible be designated for Good Grapes during construction. Because I need to promote the heck out of going back to when COVID just hit, where no one came into the store. I mean, no one. Phone, we'll get it into your car, just have no contact. But I'm really concerned because, as you know, we're in a wealthy community, and even if the street itself isn't closed, no one wants to drive their car down a street that's under construction. So I mean, I can get it there if I can say these 2 spots are designated. So that's my first question. The second is just a sign open during construction, and if I've, here's the phone number. And then this is going to sound off, but for me, it's not off at all. I think that when we finish phase 4, I'm requesting that in the budget that there's a weekend or a day, a weekend, Saturday that is supported for after Southwest Elm is done, that there's a celebration of the completion of phase 4. And whether you do it through other parts of the village, I'm not here to represent them. But I think that, if you look at, as a business owner, streetscape construction, COVID, civil unrest, it seems like we should all be dancing at the end of this happy days are here again. And I think you can do it with not a ton of money. And, but just getting people back into there, right? Because both dining and shopping, and we're not any different than the other phases, but they're habits, right? They're habit forming, but I think there should be some sort of celebration for that. That's my input. Thank you for listening.
We're always up for a good party, so that,
Well, and it wouldn't have to be all on it, then the restaurants and I can do our own promos, but something like the closing of the streets, which I know our police chief doesn't like to do, but the closing of it, get some bands, just let people walk up and down for a day with their drinks. Thank you.
thanks. All right, and Teresa, Rob was writing down those items. I don't see a real problem with designating parking spaces for any of the businesses who request that during the construction period, so I don't think that'll be a problem at all, and the other stuff will definitely, remember, you'll be brought in on the phasing conversations as well, so, yeah. You, Bruno, Gary, the whole gang will be involved in that too, so. All right, we bring it back up. You guys can have at it. I'll sit back and,
I have one small question. And it's, the garbage cans? I hate the old aggregate ones. But one thing was brought to my attention. The new cans, they attract bees, and a couple of the stores now, they can't keep their doors open because the bees have gotten so bad. Are there lids we can put on those suckers?
for those flippy things.
Yeah, so if we could retrofit the ones we've already done and think about that going forward, because I would hate to, I think about my kids with their sticky ice cream, they throw it in the cans and then the bees, and I wouldn't
this
want
is
to
the-
inflict that on,
This is the time of the year where they get bad.
yeah, it's real bad right now.
Is that good to have bees?
Jim, did you get that?
Elm Street Cleaners is one of the ones that, yeah, they're like swarming his door.
Actually, how many receptacles are there? Is there just one set of receptacles in the mall?
Just one set.
You know what? There are also been complaints about the amount of trash. If we could put one at each end, that I think would be a good idea. There's one at either end?
There's one set in the middle and a set right out here.
By Lakeside.
Oh, there are two. Okay, okay, all right.
Set in the beginning, which would make sense with
Yeah.
All right,
Go for it, guys.
all right, I'll
Go ahead.
Okay. When you presented the budget, I was glad to see that you included current costs, because a lot of construction materials, including concrete and asphalt, is crazy high. Hopefully, by the time maybe it goes out for bid, some of those might come down, so that was good to see. In the budget, where's design fee fall into place? Is it in there yet, or where does that come from? I don't think I saw the fee in the spreadsheet.
And John, where did the what fall in place?
Design fee?
Oh, design, okay, thank you.
Maybe I missed it? Even on your presentation, I guess.
Isn't that what we're approving tonight, too?
No, that's coming after tonight, because we
Oh.
wanted to make sure we had a
Yeah.
design contract that reflects.
Well, it was right here on the screen.
Oh, there, that, right.
You're correct. So the design fees are not built in, the
Right.
soft costs are not built
Okay.
into this.
Okay.
You know that Tuscan Sierra had provided fees to staff separately. so
Yeah.
I think that was also
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
As long as the staff knows where it's coming from.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it'd be loaded into that budget, and there's, at this point, adequate fund balance as we're projecting.
Good.
The reason we didn't want to overly state that is because we wanted to make sure we had an agreed-upon scope before
Agreed.
we refine that contract.
Okay, great. Jody, how you have the extension of Moffett Mall going to Village Hall?
Yeah.
Does it make any sense if you want to continue that Moffett Mall across Chestnut also the same way? Is that something to look at?
Yeah, that would be cool.
We talked about several options.
Plan?
We were,
That was the original.
we were being a little bit shy about doing too much from the center line of Chestnut Street to the west, because we're kind of leaving that west side as a placeholder for when
Yeah.
the lot gets redeveloped there. I mean, if you look back to the downtown plan, as you remember, there's site plans in there that were developed that showed, kind of a more formal connection
Right.
to Moffett Mall, and so
Yeah.
certainly those things should happen, but this streetscape plan is designed to sort of, just do enough up until the post office site gets
Right.
redeveloped.
But if it went across to the west, basically, you're going to put a curb ramp in, and that's all on that side. And there's something, it's something to look at maybe is all.
Sure, you could, I mean, it would have to get,
Hey, John,
Right.
remember that street on the western side comes over to the east so that it all aligns ultimately, and we lose that crazy alignment issue that we have there now.
Right.
And you end up with diagonal.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
right, right.
Anyway, just, if that doesn't work, that's
But I
fine.
like the idea. That's a
Yeah,
great idea.
yeah. At Chestnut and Oak, is there a stone wall, kind of like the other areas planned?
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't spend enough time talking.
That's okay.
about
No, I
that.
just want to make sure we're kind of
Yeah,
similar.
no, I was regretting not talking about that more, but yes, the corner at Chestnut and Oak is designed to really mimic what is recently been installed at Lincoln and Elm. So
Okay.
it's the stone walls on,
Good.
what, 3 sides and the curb on one side or whatever it is, so that there's more places for people to sit and also.
Okay,
places
good.
to hang.
All right, and then my last comment, Teresa may not love this, but if you look at, that corner there, what if we were to lose one parking stall on the west end of Moffett Mall, on north side and south side, that would give the 2 corner businesses a little more outside table space? So, Good Grapes could have more table space there possibly by one stall. May not always close the street though,
Right.
right?
I can share, we did look at that, we had the engineers run an auto turn
Yeah,
diagram, because the streets are really narrow there. too.
Right.
It's-
Yeah.
And we were looking at, other towns that have this sort of orientation with, kind of businesses on 3 sides. Anyways,
Right.
when the engineers ran their auto turns, they found that having those bump outs didn't enable the large truck traffic and the other automobiles, frankly, to make those same turns.
Yeah.
So how are they doing with the car parked?
Pardon me?
With the car parked, there's the same thing, right?
It barely makes it.
Barely makes it.
Yeah, so you would lose,
It's a
you'd
smaller
lose it.
vehicle.
Okay, all right.
So the idea was just to maintain the
Right.
turning movements that.
And am I right though, on the street closures, wasn't it a COVID item that we looked at on closing the streets?
But John, look out there tonight.
Right,
I mean, and obviously they have to make a request. And
Right.
Deliberate it, but,
Right.
You look out there tonight and say, oh my God, this is Winnetka?
Okay, all right.
I mean.
I'm not saying yes or no, I just wanted to make sure that at this point, it's a yearly possible request.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think it would be. I mean,
It is.
It is?
yeah, okay.
We don't have to say yes, but they can.
Right, okay. And then I appreciate Teresa's question about, with the extra work on different phases, not to increase the time. But when you look at the different phases, those different phases probably won't affect the time by your stores, my guess. So, good, thanks.
I mean, I can share, on the other streetscapes that we've worked on, the priority is always really has to be on the businesses, as everyone knows. And so there are areas within the streetscape plan that really won't have as much of an impact, like up on Elm Street. So,
Right.
typically what we would do is we would, go after
Before it, I'll be back in a minute.
the areas that need to, have contractors get in and get out, and just
Right.
get it, ready
Sure.
so that businesses can operate.
Right. And again, I know probably be not the happiest or the most liked guy right now, but if you were to take the Moffett Mall out of the center and give all that space to both sidewalks, you may not have to close the street to have the dining. Because when there's dining on the streets, the Moffett Mall doesn't really get used by the businesses. I mean, I know it's a great concept, it's been there a long time, it's a big major piece of Winnetka, but the thought that that could just be one way or something with parking on both sides and a lot more sidewalk space in front of the restaurants and may not have to close the street. Because right now you got 2 drive aisles that you really may not need. So just a thought. Don't shoot the messenger, but it's something to look at.
I think you're right, you're
Not
not the
at-
most like guy right now.
And then let's talk about.
Chris walk out on me?
Too many of them.
Yeah. Well, here's a way of thinking of that. I mean, remember the concept that was originally floated with One Winnetka, that Lincoln Avenue would be sort of like a plaza. And that really didn't make a ton of sense because it was a through street. But this is not a through street. And this is the logical place to have that sort of concept that can be used as a street during the day. But it can be easily closed off and used as a public plaza. And so I'm glad that we're open to the idea of closing that plaza more, because initially it had been, for insurance reasons and stuff, it wasn't, the village wasn't too excited about doing it. But, I mean, this is the place in the village to to do that. And I mean, is there a reason why the center couldn't
Well,
be used
Penny, I would say that this existing median.
Yep.
Or, you know, landscaped area. And you know this, going back to the Bennett plan.
Yep, right.
The idea is to connect it into the post office.
Absolutely.
Then into Dwyer Park.
Right,
so that
exactly.
you have that feeling of interconnectedness through all
Right.
the public spaces in the village.
Yep, definitely.
So, and then the other aspect here is that, you know, if we can reinvest in Moffett Mall. So for example, I know Teresa had mentioned lighting. The lighting is proposed, the existing lighting would be replaced with the new standards so that the lighting would be better than what's there now. Electrical would be upgraded, so there'd be more capacity to do more at that spot.
Right.
I can mention too, I didn't talk about this one either, but the light poles that are in Moffett Mall are shorter than the typical standard light poles. And so we would be replacing them with the same short height, but upgraded new light poles, short height, so it matches.
Yeah, I mean, part of the charm of that is because it does have a sort of different scale than, yeah, right.
So Chris,
Yeah.
I think you walked out on me when I was talking, but, and it was just to throw it out there that if you're trying to have the restaurants more space, I know, I know it's a big Moffett Mall thing's been there a long time and the thinking, but just throw it out there. And then you won't have to worry about closing streets. Each restaurant or Good Grapes or whoever else is on the street has that much more sidewalk space. So.
Of course, a lot depends on what happens across the street too, and
Right.
Yeah.
what ends up
So,
happening. with
again,
the post office.
I'm,
One
way is
idea
fine.
John had that I liked at the beginning, before he went downhill with the.
right, okay.
But I like the idea of following through on the original plan.
Yeah.
And connecting it, and,
I do.
and I think we've held off on that because of the waiting for Godot post office thing, but, you know, when you go by there, one of the challenges right now is, there's not a good way for people to cross the street over to the parking lot.
Good point.
And you oftentimes see people crossing the street right there, and it's kind of a shit show. So,
Right.
actually, I think you could do that finishing, make it a nice crosswalk.
Right.
And,
It's
you know,
minimal-
it's another point where people are going to have to stop, which means we're going to get angry emails questioning our sanity. Why would you do that? But I think it could be nice. It would stop traffic a little bit. It would force a pause right in front of your store. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's something to think about.
And probably minimal reconstruction in the future if you had to do something back into
Yeah,
West
and
Side.
it also signals what we might want. I mean,
Right.
honestly, the whole master plan was aligning with Village Hall down Moffett Mall. Like, I think it'd be sort of nuts to not take advantage of that. So
I agree.
I like that idea a lot. I thought that was really good.
I say we vote on that right now.
All right, that's all I have.
I just said a couple things. First of all, I have to say I agree with the Moffett Mall piece. The continuation will truly make the downtown area. So putting in my plug now. Dave, the water main work was going to be done anyway? Or Jim, was it?
It has to be, yeah.
Okay, great.
Replacement water mains.
Yeah,
And it improves the circulation through Moffett Mall to allow for improved fire suppression as well, so it's planned.
so everything that's being planned. So I think optically, I'm glad you laid it out like, for us, I'm glad you laid it out like that. But as we go forward for streetscape, you know, obviously we'll separate that.
Yeah.
So, because that makes it look so artificially inflated, but,
And this is a much smaller water main than what we just experienced on Lincoln, which was a 21-inch water main.
is that right?
This is a more standard 8, 10, 12 size, which is more manageable.
And there's a gap between Elm and Oak that needs to be replaced.
That's correct.
Yeah. So that will improve flows on either side of the street, and the looping will help as well.
Well, and if you guys remember, we actually authorized a change order to extend across Elm Street so that we wouldn't have to rip up our streetscape when we came back again. So the good news is there's a good connection point already in
Just
this
south of
phase of the
Right.
project, so.
And the transformer relocation that you're looking at putting them, or is that planning for what's going to happen to the post office too, or that has nothing to do with it? Are you planning for the future, or are you just kind of getting them out from underground?
Located in the public right-of-way.
No,
The transformers?
there is no way you're putting the transformer in that location.
It's tough.
No.
Go ahead.
The transformer is placed on the southeast corner of the post office site,
South.
so it's not in the right-of-way. So,
By the park?
of the building, I'm sorry,
It'll
of
be
the
the
building,
flyer?
not of the site, of the building. So if you straight down the post office, you cross the street to the left, it'll be set back, you know, where the post office, it kind of juts out the main retail area.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of a setback before you get to the major portion of the building.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think 2 steps ahead so we don't relocate it when we change that. So I'm just trying to make sure, yeah, it sounds like we have some thinking to do.
Where that T is there is not where it's going.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
Just checking. So that was 2.
How big is the transformer?
They're 6 by 6.
And that would be how many transformers, just one, or it would be 3?
No, that would be one transformer, a 3-phase transformer. That's a type of transformer.
Three wires.
So there are currently 2 volts, but there would be now just one transformer.
There's two, one on the other
There will
side.
be 2 transformers. There will be a small one that would be placed outside of the village hall here in an island, is the current thought.
Yeah, we'll have to get Brian at the table and discuss those locations.
Conceptual at this point, right?
I mean, the aesthetics of putting a transformer in either of those locations is not, I don't think is gonna, Jody, I'm hoping you'll fight for that too, because, you know, this is something you just can't hide with a couple of bushes. It's right in the middle of everything.
Those are the main ones. And optically, when we talk about streetscape, we'll just separate those 2. But I like the way you laid it out here because it lets us know the comprehensive look. Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the budget too, and I think John started asking, is there any way, if this isn't palatable to people or they want to remove things, to see what it looks like in each space versus line items as a whole? So I see that there's, you know, pavers is a line item and street lighting is a line item, but not Elm Street or Spruce or parking lot. I'm just curious what each one costs.
We have that information.
Yeah.
The way that we developed the cost estimate was by those locations, so we could provide that.
I'm just curious.
So we can bring that back with the detailed
Perfect.
proposal, but at concept, we wanted to kind of keep it at, you know, a little bigger picture. Okay? But we, as the design contract comes back, we can break that down.
And we could bid things out kind of like that too, which we've done in the
Sure,
past.
whether you want to do, break out landscaping
Yeah.
separately or something. Bid them as alternates.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, obviously, as we don't have the cost specifics yet, but, and that as we're wrapping around to the Village Hall lot, I would hope that that's a priority. I don't know how much money would be spent on the Birch Spruce lot versus that, but I think that, you know, making the Village Hall lot look nice and be really functional for multiple uses, I think, is something we ought to think about. And if that means maybe not doing a total overhaul on the Spruce lot, but maybe, you know, just doing some replantings, and, because, you know, fundamentally, I don't think it's terrible. I mean, it doesn't look great right now, but it's not, you know, I don't know if it needs to be all dug out and redone, so.
The village lot's like our front yard.
Yeah, well, like you're from my front yard, a disaster. Anyway, so just as you move forward in terms of prioritization.
Robert, the 3 projects, are they going to be those are 2022?
The 3 projects, which ones are
The
your?
transformer,
Yes,
the Village Hall parking lot?
Yes.
Spruce parking lot?
Yep.
They're going to be 2022
yes,
capital items?
yes.
Were they part of the sort of capital plan
Yes.
that was rolled out? So these are not,
So for example, the Village Hall parking lot and other related improvements to the village-owned parking lots, that work is actually budgeted in fiscal '22 in the capital plan at $450,000. So that one's there. The transformer relocation is part of Brian's, every year he tries to make system improvements, and he's expressed very strongly to get those transformers out of the vaults We actually have one scheduled for Lakeside to occur soon as well because of their poor condition. You can't expand them, and they're a bear to maintain. So that's in his plan. And then the water main work, we're got a certain amount budgeted every year for water main work, and he is comfortable with this one being a priority.
Okay, so that fits into the planning.
It does.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Other comments or questions? What do you think, guys?
I think we'd go ahead.
I think it's
Nice work.
exciting. Good, yeah, it's nice. It's a nice polishing it off.
But again, I think the responsible thing would be to bid some of these add-ons as alternates, because if the budget gets a little hanky, or
Yes,
if we have
exactly.
second guesses, we can at least pull it out and
Right.
still get the main stuff done and come back to the,
Yep.
to the gingerbread and maybe at another day, if that happens.
Yeah,
I think that the budgets are a little high overall. I've looked at the detail, and I think there's plenty of money to be had there, but you don't want to plan like that. I mean,
Right.
I would, but, I mean, if I was out there, I would probably plan a little bit more aggressively, but.
Yeah.
With the construction documents, 100%, all of the things, with the phases broken out, how we want to bid it.
Right,
Great.
right. So,
Chris, I also think that, we continue on this learning curve through these different phases, and I was thrilled about the tree preservation that came into this. I do think Teresa's point on access to the businesses and so on, I know that the Lincoln project was much bigger than anyone ever thought with that water main, but we do know that a lot of the businesses, that was a really difficult couple of months for the businesses.
brutal.
And it was brutal. And I would really sort of advocate for a little extra time in thinking on how to make sure that these businesses have good access. I know there are unforeseen things that can happen along the way, like the water main, but, we've learned, we've gotten better, but that, that was a little setback. And so let's really try to make sure that Good Grapes and the restaurants and the others, have good access.
We don't want to kill what's happening here, for sure.
Right.
I mean, this is really special, and we've worked a long, long time to get it to this point. We don't want to see it go south on us now, so there'll be a lot in the planning stages, and certainly you have to take all that into consideration. I'm already thinking, how do you make that happen? And,
Right.
it's going to be tricky. And Teresa, there are going to be days where you're unhappy, but we will commit to the fact that we will work with you hand in hand all the way through this and make sure that the impact is as small as it can be.
I get that. I think it's managing expectations, right?
Well, and some of it's just making sure that the contractor isn't a bonehead and doesn't do something stupid that really affects your business negatively.
Hypothetically speaking.
Yep. All right, well, let's see where we go here. Okay, do I have consensus to move forward with Phase 4 streetscape improvements for the purpose of
Proceeding with the design contract.
proceeding with the design contracts
Yes.
as presented?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting all nods here? So,
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
we do that.
We'll see the contract amount before it's,
Oh, yeah.
good, yes.
You can't go forward without you seeing it.
Got it.
Roll up your sleeves, Jim. It's going to be a. I mean, we need you to roll up your sleeves on the dollars and cents before we do any of this. So, okay. So, we don't need a vote. That's it. Consensus. So we can move forward.
Study sessions are good.
Thank you. Item 11, we'll move forward. Appointments. There are none this evening. Item 12, closed session. There is none, but I will say that you probably should expect a closed session at the next meeting. And item 13 is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you all.